Today, we're going through the best fantasy football draft strategy for picks 4, 5, and 6, and we're going to be covering redraft platforms such as Sleeper, ESPN, and Yahoo leagues, and we're also going to be covering Underdog for best ball purposes. Now, I'll be honest here, this is not my favorite range, but this is also far from my least favorite range. I have built some really good teams from this range, and I feel really confident going into this video telling you the best draft strategy. Just make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from the video today, which I know you will. And I'm also chasing 150 likes on the video, and I'm also chasing 30,000 subscribers before week 1. Now, before we get too deep into strategy, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page with the roster format and the makeup of the roster that we're going through today. When it comes to redraft leagues, what we're doing here is standard redraft leagues. We're not talking about tight end premiums. We're not talking about super flex leagues. There can be some nuances here and there throughout the video, but in general, we are going to be covering 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 kicker, and 1 defense type of formats right here. Now, when it comes to best ball, this is a different way of playing fantasy football, and it's something you need to understand if you are going to give it a go this year, which I would recommend. But it's a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 1 flex format. There's no defense, there's no kickers. Automatically, every single week, your best score by position is going to be logged so you get your best possible score on a weekly basis. There are no start-sit decisions on a weekly basis. There is no roster management such as trades or waiver wires. This is how I'm able to draft 260 of these per year because you have no roster management. You just draft once and then your best score gets automatically logged. So as long as we're on the same page, let's dive into the trends of the ADP on each particular platform. So when we're looking at Redraft ADP and their trends right now, always and every year, it used to be that redraft was a place where you had to take running backs really early in order to get really good running backs, and that wide receivers would be super good values later in drafts because a lot of times there was like 15 running backs going inside the first 2 rounds. Now, year over year, things have started to kind of change to where the gap is being a little bit tightened. It's still running back dominant in redraft leagues, but it's not as wide. You have 12 running backs going across all platforms in the first 2 rounds of ESPN, Yahoo, and Sleeper. So roughly 1 and 2 picks is going to be a running back in the first 2 rounds. Then on ESPN and Yahoo, you have 9 wide receivers that are going inside of the first 2 rounds and 10 wide receivers going on Sleeper inside of the first 2 rounds. So again, they're still running back dominant, but it's not the case that it used to be where it was super running back heavy. And this is going to be important information when we're deciding what strategy we're going to utilize in this specific pick range. Now, when we go over to Underdog and what the trends are over there, of course, since it's a 3 wide receiver format, every single week you're having at least 3 wide receivers start for you, sometimes 4 because of that additional flex option right there. So in general, wide receivers have always dominated the first 2 rounds on Underdog. Used to be like 17 receivers would go in the first 2 rounds. 19 receivers would go in the first 2 rounds of Underdog. It's the first year that I can remember being on this platform where history is being made. Running backs are going more often in the first 2 rounds on Underdog as much as they are in redraft leagues. You have 13 running backs going inside the first 2 rounds compared to 10 wide receivers. That number is crazy, and in general, best ball was so much different from redraft from a draft strategy perspective because you had to accommodate for the receivers flying off the board a lot earlier. This year, you really don't have to. It's a lot different this year, and in a lot of cases, our redraft strategy can kind of correlate with our best ball draft strategy. So when it comes to redraft leagues, in the pick 4, 5, to 6 range, what I prefer to start with is a wide receiver running back start or a double wide receiver start. And we're going to get into the exact players that I like in this range a little bit later, so stay tuned for the targets here. But when we come to best ball, it's a little bit different than that. I do not like the same strategy in best ball in this range that I do in redraft leagues. If you're playing best ball in the 4, 5, to 6 range, I like a wide receiver start. I like a wide receiver running back start. And I also like a wide receiver tight end start only if it's Brock Bowers. I want to make that 100% clear. I am not trying to go Trey McBride. in round 2. If I'm going tight end round 2, I'm taking my shot and putting my nuts on the table for Brock Bowers, and that is it right here. And I want to go through 3 particular draft strategies through 5 rounds on Underdog that I think are the best to apply in the pick range of 4, 5, and 6. So the first strategy that we'll get into here, through round 5, you go with a wide receiver, a running back, a tight end, a wide receiver again, and then another third wide receiver in round 5. Now, what you can see here is what their average playoff advancement rate, their semi-advancement rate, and their finals advancement rate is on Underdog. Historically, it's all accurate data pulled directly from Underdog. And what you can see here is everything is basically in the green right here. So this is historically a really good strategy to follow. And the reason I like the tight end in round 3 is sometimes if you get Trey McBride in this area, I really do think it's a good value. Now, when we come to our next strategy that I really like on Underdog, wide receivers through round 3. That's what we're doing. First 3 rounds is wide receivers exclusively. Then you go with 2 running backs in rounds 4 and 5. This strategy, to get to the playoffs, it's a little bit tougher. It's a little below average. But if you make it to the playoffs, your chances of going to the semis and the finals are extremely strong. And the last strategy I really like, if we were to utilize Brock Bowers in round 2, what I like to do is go with wide receiver 1, round 1, tight end 1, round 2, wide receivers again in rounds 3 and 4, and then quarterback 1 in round 5. Now, this is different from redraft once again. I would not do this strategy in redraft, but in best ball, this has such a strong historical advancement rate that I don't think you could go wrong with this in this particular pick range because of the targets we're going to highlight here in a minute. But if you do want to get into an Underdog draft, first of all, I think it's a great idea because not only are you going to give yourself a chance to win massive life-changing money by just placing well in the puppy draft, which is just a cheap $5 entry, you could win $100,000 for first place. I also think it's the best gauge currently of exactly what the market is doing, because when you're doing just mock drafts, especially with bots, a lot of these picks are so disingenuous. This is all real people putting real money on the line, and it's the best gauge of exactly how to draft right now. So go down in the comments, there's a pinned link there to go to Underdog, or you can just go to the App Store, download the Underdog app from there, but just use code FFR at signup, because when you use code FFR, not only is Underdog going to give you $50 back when you play just $5, the puppy, for example, I will also be giving you a free copy of the Redraft Draft Guide. I've been giving away the Best Ball Draft Guide. I'm actually shifting gears here and giving you guys an even better deal. The Redraft Draft Guide is sold for $23 to my Venmo, but if you're new to Underdog and you just want to get the draft guide for free, you can do that when you use my code and you play on Underdog. And on top of that, if I hit 250 total Underdog signups by week 1's beginning this year, I will be giving away 20 free fantasy football Roundup hats. So in total, we've got $50 back from Underdog. You've got a chance at a free hat, and you're getting the Redraft Draft Guide completely free. It's a great deal. It's not going to last forever, actually. So make sure to hop in on it now while you still can. Now let's get into the exact targets that I'm looking for, and we'll start out with redraft right here. So in the first 2 rounds, starting out with round 1, obviously this is a great range to be at for round 1 in particular. You're getting some of the top names here. You've got Jamar Chase, who's my favorite, and it's kind of weird. Some platforms, people seem to prefer Puka Nacua over Jamar Chase. I don't really get it. To be honest with you, Jamar has been such a consistent top 5 option in the NFL his entire career. So for me personally, Puka is behind Jamar Chase as my second favorite option. But I'm not going to split hairs with you too much here. If you, for some reason, just have a gut reason why you're picking Puka over Jamar, then do it. I don't really care that much. But JSN is my number 2. This is where things get interesting. There is an anti-JSN crowd out there, and I don't really understand them, to be honest, because his target share is going to hold. His offense may not be as good without Clint Kubiak, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much if his target share is going to be strong, which I would expect it to be. So JSN is my number 3 here. Jonathan Taylor is my 4, and there's a definite teardrop behind JSN. I don't have the same enthusiasm, not even close to pick Jonathan Taylor, but I would definitely pick JT 100 times out of 100 over McCaffrey. I knew this was going to happen. McCaffrey was going to rise up and get in everybody's brain in the top 5 picks. I think it's a massive mistake to pick him in the first round in general, especially top 5. So I am not advising any of my audience to go with Christian McCaffrey. And if you want more info on why, I've got a couple videos out there that are on the screen right now that you can check out. Now, round 2 in redraft leagues, Amari Hampton is definitely my top dog. This is someone I've explained a lot this offseason. I see as having sneaky overall running back 1 upside. I don't think that you should be drafting him at the top of the first round, but that's okay because you could still get him in the second round depending on the platform you're on. And I think Amari Hampton is a drastically better pick than somebody like a Derrick Henry who also goes in this range. So for me, he's number 1. Number 2 also is Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice is a top 5 guy this year in fantasy as long as he's healthy and plays all 17 games. That's the only thing that's screwing this one up in my opinion here, is if he misses time for any reason, because all he's shown you is the ability to be a top 5 guy in his last 17 games or so. Then with Brock Bowers, if you want to do this, I am not going to fight it. I'm actually having more and more trouble fighting it every single day. The urge to go with Bowers in the second round in this range, I think Bowers really could break fantasy football this year. I'm not saying that he is my favorite pick because I do think there's great tight end values later in the draft. What I'm saying, though, is if everything goes right and he's healthy, I really do think this guy could break fantasy football. So if you want to start out Jamar, Puka, JSN, and then go with Brock Bowers, I'm not going to fight you on that one. I think he's so high upside. Derrick Henry is my 4th favorite option. Josh Allen, it's not that the pick is bad. Josh Allen rarely has ever busted in his fantasy football career. My point on Josh this year is I just think late quarterback strategy is the total move to make this offseason. So I would go with Henry, even though Henry is not exactly my favorite player to target in this range. Now let's switch gears to Underdog in the first 2 rounds right here. So first of all, the exact same order stands. The only change here is that instead of Jonathan Taylor in this range, it's actually Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I think is the correct move, regardless of best ball or redraft. I think Amon-Ra is a better pick in general than Jonathan Taylor. So Amon-Ra, similar to the tier of JSN, Puka Nacua in that range, but I would definitely prefer Puka and JSN over Amon-Ra still. But other than that, everything is the same. Round 2 on Underdog. You've got a different group of guys here. It's a little bit different as far as values go on Underdog. My opinion here, Devon Achane and AJ Brown are the 2 top guys. I think with Devon Achane, people are overreacting about the team this guy's on. I'm not saying that the Dolphins are good. My point is saying that they weren't good last year and he was still freaking dominant. They're going to find ways to get this guy the ball, man. I'm just not concerned about this one. So if you're wanting a running back in the first 2 rounds, which I do think is a smart move, I don't think Devon Achane in the second round is going to age poorly. I think it ages well. AJ Brown, though, if you want to start out double wide receiver, I'm not going to fight you because AJ Brown does have top 5 upside. I think he's a great pick to make. But if you want to go with Bowers, once again, I have no issue with going with Brock Bowers in Underdog best ball drafts either. In fact, I'm even more willing to take him in best ball leagues than I am in redraft leagues because I think that his upside, once again, is so ridiculously high. So Bowers here, there's a clear tier break from Bowers to Drake London and Nico Collins. Not that I don't like those picks. I actually don't have much of an issue with either of these guys. I just think that when it comes to those top 3, those guys have all top 5 to top 3 upside from a fantasy football positional fitness perspective. Now let's shift gears back to redraft and go through rounds 3 and 4. So in round 3, in redraft leagues, it starts to get a little weird here, in my opinion, in this range. The first 2 picks in this range, I really do like a lot, but then we get into round 3, and I don't love the guys, and I find myself reaching on a bunch of guys here. So George Pickens in this range, I think he's the clear best pick by far. There are some anti-George Pickens people out there. My whole thing this entire offseason has been, I don't think there's that much of a difference between him and CeeDee Lamb this year. So I like Pickens in his exact pick range. Now, Josh Jacobs is my clear second favorite, but he's also much lower in my rankings than George Pickens is. This is the first year I'm starting to fade Josh Jacobs a little bit. It doesn't matter as much when it comes to best ball, and we'll get into that more here in a minute. When it comes to redraft leagues, though, I'm less comfortable picking him here, but I'd still rather have him than Chris Olave. And I'm not saying Olave's a terrible pick. What I'm saying is I do think that Jordan Tyson is going to start pushing him at some point in the season and will take away from Chris Olave, who dominated in target share last year. I think he's on the horizon, and he'll hurt you closer to the end of the season when it starts to matter most in the playoffs. Now, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, I'm taking Olave over both these guys 1,000 times out of 1,000. There's no chance I'm going with a Jet player in redraft leagues. Best ball, you want to talk about that? Maybe we could have a discussion, maybe get you some upside games. But when it comes to making start-sit decisions on a weekly basis, which you have to do in redraft, then both these guys are going to be a disaster for you. Just stay away from Jets players in the third round. You're going to do yourself a big favor. Now, round 4 in redraft leagues. Travis Etienne, Devontae Adams, they're my two favorites, but again, it's weird in this round. I find myself reaching a lot in this range. I don't love these guys. Travis Etienne, I do think is the best one by far. I've got more concerns with Devontae than I do with Etienne. But here's the thing about these 3 picks. Tyler Warren, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. I don't think that any of them are fade-away players. None of those guys I'm fading this year. My point on it is, like I said with Josh Allen, I am going to be punting on quarterback until later rounds this year. Anything beyond round 6, I'm going to go with a quarterback or a tight end in that range, and Tyler Warren is included in that argument. I love Tyler Warren a lot this year, actually, but I don't think it's a smart move to give up a key positional pick to go with one of these guys unless it is a Brock Bowers or maybe a Josh Allen in the first 2 to 3 rounds. Now let's go to Underdog here, and let's look at this range. I think it's much more favorable in Underdog drafts in the 3rd to 4th round. You get Malik Neighbors here, I have no issue with it. I haven't had an issue with it all offseason, and his price is actually starting to rise. So let's say you're watching this 2 weeks after it comes out. He may not even be here anymore. So if you want him now, I would take him now and play on Underdog today by going down to the link and grabbing that and signing up using code FFR. I think Malik Neighbors is good. Trey McBride, again, if you want to utilize that draft strategy, I think McBride in this range is a very good value to take. I also like Devonta Smith in this range a lot. I don't think he's going to hurt you, and I don't think he's necessarily a league-winning type of guy, but I definitely don't think he's going to hurt you. I think he's a very solid pick. Chris Olave, Breece Hall. I think that Chris Olave is a much better player in this range than Breece Hall, but I don't particularly love either of these guys. And the reason I don't like Breece is exactly how I explained it earlier just a couple minutes ago. Round 4, Cam Skattebo, Josh Jacobs. Give me both of those guys. Cam Skattebo, I think, has sneaky RB1 overall upside. And Josh Jacobs, unlike redraft leagues, he's a much better value on Underdog. His price has not risen up since he got arrested in like June. His price has been in this range, and I've been drafting a ton of him, and I would advise you to do the same. Luther Burden, I'm starting to get on board with the hype slowly but surely. He's not my favorite pick in this range. I'd rather have the 2 running backs, but I do think Luther Burden's good here. Terry McLaurin, I also think he's good. Washington just brought in Stephon Diggs. I don't think that drastically affects Terry McLaurin, though. Colston Loveland, like I said with Tyler Warren, I don't think that Loveland is a bad pick necessarily, but I do think you'll end up regretting it in most situations, just because of the fact that there's later tight end values in the draft. Now let's go back to redraft for round 5. T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Jalen Waddle, I think they're all a step above Joe Burrow and Kyle Pitts. Now, if you want to go with Joe Burrow in round 5, if you have Jamar Chase, I don't have an issue with that. Like, that is the one time I think that's totally fine to do. But Kyle Pitts, there is actually no circumstance I think this pick makes sense. Kyle Pitts in this range is way too risky, and he can easily crush your team. Even last year when he was the tight end 2 finish, the point differential between him and the tight end 1 Trey McBride was about 100 points. Kyle Pitts has yet to hit his ceiling, his true ceiling in the NFL, and I'm not paying a 5th round cost for it after a tight end 2 finish. Now over on Underdog, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, these 2 backs I really do think are good picks. I think Travion in particular is someone who can win leagues towards the end of the season. With Judkins here, I think he's a really good RB2 and a great RB3 option if you were to go something like that. Lamar Jackson, just because of the value I do think is a really good pick in this range. We just don't get the opportunity to take Lamar in the 5th round much, so I understand if you want to take that opportunity. Jameson Williams, Devontae Adams, I actually don't hate either of these guys in this range, which is why I'm really okay with this range in best ball, but a little less okay with it in redraft leagues. So let me know what you think of the draft strategy in the comments below. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today, and if you want to see the wide receivers that are going to break out this year, click on this video right here.